All right, it's time for Good Take, where every week Mike and I share the very best takes about the things in and around the NBA that we've been cooking up during the week. We've each prepared our own takes, and after we share them, the winner of last week's episode is going to get the and one. As always, you can vote for the best take on the RealGM Radio YouTube community page. Mike, you're up first.
All right, so we are talking before the show. We want to do kind of underrated, overrated free agent moves, right? So, I think we each picked one of each.
Yep.
And I think let's start negative, right? That's what we want to do here. So let's look at moves that I think have been kind of maybe overly praised, a little overrated. And for me, coming in hot from Japan, 48 hours ago, and
all hopped up on Stingray.
Just hopped up on the Stingray and the weird beer there, and trying to figure out what in God's name, why a third of the All-Stars from last season are on different teams. I was a little shocked at the overwhelming positive reception that Jaylen Brown to the 76ers got. And I want to stress that I don't think that this is necessarily a bad move. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think they're idiots for making it. The price was maybe higher than people thought, but still not bad. You're trading two pretty solid first-round picks, but you're also getting off of Paul George's contract to bring in Jaylen Brown to the 76ers. Cool, fine. But I saw just infinite numbers of A's and A pluses and no questions asked, slam dunk win kind of thing. And I don't really feel like that's fair. I think there is significant downside to this trade. We're looking at a team right now that every one of its decisions should be based around how do we navigate this Joel Embiid contract? And that might not be fair. Embiid, when he played last year, was still an amazing offensive force. It's honestly people don't appreciate how good he was offensively last year. The jump shooting just continues to get better. His ability to get buckets, no matter how little mobility he has, no matter who's around him, is incredible. But he can't get to the hoop like he used to. He can't defend like he used to. He's going to get paid $1 bazillion more for 3 more years, assuming he picks up his player option. And that's just such an anchor to a team. And I worry that this is throwing good money after bad to some extent, because now you've got Maxey on a max contract. You've got Brown on a max contract. You've got Embiid on a max contract. And they've done a nice job of filling out the rest of the roster. Dean Wade is helpful. Anthony Simons is helpful. VJ Edgecombe is obviously still there, and he's going to be awesome. But, man, this is one of those teams that there's not a lot of passing. Jaylen Brown wanted to be the guy. He wanted to be the bus driver, and now he's going to be sitting, in the middle of the bus on some nights, right? Embiid's going to get his 30. Maxey on a lot of nights is still going to be the number one option. And you wonder how Brown is going to fit kind of with the way he perceives himself and in the pecking order of this team, which is going to be a big question mark. And there's just not a lot of playmaking. It's going to be a lot of your turn, my turn, his turn. I just think that the basketball fit, the talent is undeniable. I worry that the basketball fit here is going to be less than the sum of its parts.
So I'm glad you brought this up right at the beginning of, look, it's not a bad move, but you think that the response to it has been a little questionable. This entire next couple segments is going to require some nuance, people. So before you come at us and say, oh my God, they think Jaylen Brown was a bad move and this all requires nuance. I agree 100% with everything that you're saying. Jaylen Brown has now become, I think, the most polarizing player in the NBA for all the reasons we never thought was going to happen. Turns out the media loves this guy. The media loves this guy, and nobody else in the league really likes this guy very much. And the analytics don't like him very much. And social media is sort of split on him. But you listen to the media again talk about him, and they're like, I can't believe they got this guy for the Paul George and 2 first round picks. They stole him, they got him for free, all these things. I'm like, can we just slow our roll a little bit on the Jaylen Brown stuff? He's a good player. But the same reason, I'm looking at by the way, I had the same response, wow, that's all the Celtics got for Jaylen Brown. But the more I studied it and the more I looked at Philadelphia's cap sheet on it, and I'm like, did Philadelphia just box themselves into the same place that Boston was just in? The Jaylen Brown contract and the Joel Embiid contracts are exactly the same. 57, 61, 67, something like that, 64, something, whatever it is. They are, just like the Celtics, now invested 70% of their cap into 2 basketball players. The problem is that one of those basketball players is now Joel Embiid. And I think the Sixers got better with this trade. I actually don't think there's any question that they got better with this trade. But they also boxed themselves in. And they're gonna. I could just see in a couple of years where, unless they can get off of Joel Embiid, which, I mean, good luck. And now you have 2 fewer first-round picks to attach to him. I kind of think that you're capped out as pretty good, playoff team in the East, certainly. More interesting, better. But now you are even more reliant on trying to get Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe to pop in a way that, like, Maxey's already improved, like, by leaps and bounds twice. Like, you could have argued for him for most improved player last year again. He needs to almost take, like, a Brunson-type leap. Or VJ Edgecombe has to take a huge leap. And now it's going to be even harder for Edgecombe to take that leap now that Jaylen Brown is there, and he's going to need the ball. So I'm just I'm with you. I'm not as, oh my God, home run, slam dunk on this. I can't believe the Sixers got away with murder here. I'm like, yeah, I feel like this was not an easy decision for them to make. I think it was the right decision. I think it's really hard not to make this decision. You're getting a chance at Jaylen Brown, and you're able to get off the Paul George money. I get it. But you're kind of this now. Unless you think, of course, that Jaylen Brown can end up being the number one guy on a championship team, and the rest of the league just doesn't seem to feel that way.
Yeah, it's always dangerous when you're going so wildly against consensus, right? Because you're in a league where there's 30 smart. Oh, okay, let's say 20 smart teams, and it's like, oh, you're the smart team that sees something that the other 19 ones don't, right? And that doesn't mean you aren't right, but it means that the odds are you're wrong, and so that's why I get nervous about this, because you are locked into the score.
Would hear what you said and said, what do you mean they're going against the consensus? No, the league's consensus and then the media consensus are two different consensuses. Consensi?
Right.
I don't
Consensid.
know.
Yeah.
Consensus. Okay.
I think what you said is exactly how I feel. Like, now you are locked in with a very expensive core that is going to be every year. It's going to be harder and harder to fill out these Dean Wades and Anthony Simons around them. In a way that, like, we know that basketball is not won by, like, this big three model anymore. It hasn't been in quite some time. And, they have some young guys that are, or maybe I shouldn't say young, but they have some valuable cheap guys now. Every year you're going to lose another one of those guys, right? And then eventually it's just going to be nothing but unproven, youngster second-round picks and, like, way over the hill 39-year-olds who are just jumping on for one last ride. So it could work. Like, we could look at this like next year and next season is like the Knicks last year, where, like, the regular season is a 6-month-long, like, alchemizing process where they're turning lead to gold, and there's a lot of gross byproduct, and there's sludge, and it's disgusting. And then everything works perfectly, and they're rolling out 24-karat bricks by the end of the season, right? Like, that is possible, but it is not a certainty. It's not a likelihood. It's not even like something that I think you would get good odds on. So I don't know. It makes me nervous a little bit, just the fact when you have all these guys, none of them are clear-cut, like, number one playmaker, table setter. That is always a warning sign to me.
I'm not going to argue that Paul George is better than Jaylen Brown. And I do think that we have a fit fetish in NBA media to a degree where it gets a little uncomfortable when we talk about fit over talent and stuff, and I don't want to do that. But there is something to be said about Paul George. Look, what he got paid, too much. He was getting paid too much by the Sixers. But he kind of played the perfect role as Tyrese Maxey ascended, where he was complimentary, spaced the floor, catch-and-shoot guy who played defensively and then could step into that leading man role occasionally. Not every time you wanted him to or needed him to, but occasionally. And Jaylen Brown's just not going to do that. Jaylen Brown's going to need the ball. Tyrese Maxey's going to need the ball. Joel Embiid's going to need the ball. There is only one basketball, and at some point you do end up running into the ball. It's why I don't like the LeBron fit there, for the record. That to me is really clunky, and I kind of hate it.
A lot of mouths to feed in Philly if LeBron signs there, and, like, they do need his
one Stingray.
Yeah, they do need his passing, but yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Like, I don't think it works in Philly. There's just too much stuff going on there, and I get what they're doing. Like, yeah, you get a chance to add more talent, you become better. But I mean, like, Jaylen Brown's struggles in the playoffs were part of the reasons why Philly made that comeback in the first place, Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'll tell you this. I can't remember the last time that, like, there was such this uproar online about this, like, analytics versus eye test thing, and everybody's going head to head. Like, there's been players like that in the past, but it is rare that we have such a deep schism that can almost be proven next season, like, no matter what happens, right? Like, like, we're going to have maybe not the final answer to the question, but we're going to feel a lot stronger about which one of these sides was right about Jaylen Brown by the end of next season. We're going to learn a lot more about Jaylen Brown as a player. And I personally, like, think that Philly has just shot to the very top of my league pass rankings, like top 4 for sure. So I can't wait.
It's must-watch television at the very least. Give me your underrated move here.
Man, I batted around a bunch of ones that I think were kind of, like, a lot of the underrated stuff is always going to be role players, right? Because nobody's underrating Giannis to the Heat or whatever, like that just doesn't happen. So I was like, Kelly Oubre to the Pacers is kind of fun. He's like the perfect guy for them. I really love both Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins. So I'm happy for the Pistons and the Hawks for picking up those guys. Josh Okogie is just like one of my like man crushes in the NBA. I just love guys who are just like, go around and throw their bodies around and do all this weird stuff. And he's like the best pound for pound offensive rebounder in the league and stuff. But I ended up on a different Hawk. Not a lot of attention being given to CJ McCollum going back to the Hawks on a 1-year deal. And I think $21 million in a year where you still have plenty of cap flexibility for a team that briefly lit the league on fire and by internet consensus was the second best team in the league last year by virtue of beating the Knicks twice. Like I think that's a pretty good deal for a team that can really use his steadying presence on the court. So remember they added McCollum at near the trade deadline. And as soon as they inserted him into the starting lineup, they couldn't miss. So they went 19-6 with him as a starter, 19-4 kind of to close the season. Some shooting and luck involved there. They shot 42.5% from deep when he was in the lineup. That's unsustainable. But it's worth noting that he himself shot less than 36% when he's a career 39.7% guy or something. So he can shoot better still. And only the Hornets lineup, which did get blown up this summer, only that Hornets starting lineup was better while McCollum was there. And I'm like, looking at this team, they're still pretty young-ish. Jalen Johnson is young-ish. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is young-ish, but he's never been in the kind of role that he was until last year. They got rookie Kingston Flemings now. Like, they have a lot of guys, I think, who are good ball handlers for their position, but probably could use one more year with kind of like a steadier captain on board. And McCollum's a great locker room guy. He's still very effective at his role. The team's defense was totally fine when he was on the court. Like, I just think that this was such a good re-signing for a Hawks team that, frankly, I think is ready to make some noise. Like, I'm really excited for the Hawks. I'm pretty optimistic about them, and I think that he was a big part of their success, and I'm really excited to see if they can keep the ball rolling.
It's weird because McCollum has obviously played for a couple of different teams. He feels finally at home in Atlanta, and I remember when he was in Portland wondering, like, if you gave this guy, quote-unquote, his own team, right? Like, what would that look like? And if he was able to really just be the point guard, at least in the backcourt, not having to share it with Lillard. And we didn't really get it until right now in Atlanta, where it was him and Dyson Daniels, essentially. And, God knows we don't want Dyson Daniels dribbling it very much. So McCollum was just sort of free to run the offense. And when they made the Trae Young deal, and then they eventually settled on what the offense was going to be and how it was going to look like, and McCollum playing the role that he did, it was just like, whoa. All of a sudden, this Hawks team had an adult in the room. And this is not to say anything of Trae Young, but like they had an adult in the room who didn't need the ball, but it was the first time in a long time where it felt like the Hawks point guard didn't need the ball, but they needed him to have the ball, right? And I think that's a good place for a point guard to be in, where it's like he's not going to over dribble it, he's not going to demand the ball, there's not going to be a lot of that. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, we kind of want the ball in his hands to make those decisions. And he proved in the regular season and in the playoffs. So bringing him back, I think, was a no-brainer. It's a great re-sign. You're right that nobody's really talking about it, so it's the perfect underrated move. Yeah, I'm all in. The one thing about CJ McCollum also that I just like to bring up anytime he comes up in conversation, he is one of those sneaky favorite player of the young guys guy. Like, you talk to any player, 28 and younger, any guard 28 and younger, and you ask them, who did you grow up watching, who do you study? A lot of them will bring up CJ McCollum because he's not the best athlete. He's got great footwork, great touch, great feel, good change of pace. Always really made the most out of who he is as a basketball player and an athlete. And I think that's recognized by a lot of players and like real hoopers, and doesn't really get talked about enough, I think.
Yeah, and he consistently graded out as like the best or the second best difficult shot maker. And this isn't like a qualitative thing. This is like quantitatively. You look at like how close people are to him when he shoots and the difficulty of his shots and stuff like that. He was always 1 or 2 in terms of shot making talent over expectation. And I think to your point, that's like it's a pure skill thing, And on top of that, he's just like he's a good guy. He's known as a good mentor. He was obviously head of the Players Association for a while. Like I just think he's a valuable guy to have. Like he could easily age into this like Garrett Temple, Udonis Haslem role where he's just like floating around in locker rooms, like being a good dude until he's 39. So But he's not there yet because he's still a pretty good player. So
I love that. McCollum, stick around, man. Guys like that stick around. I have no problem with it.